Um. Oh, hey, Nicholas. So, story time, folks. Story time. I brought a story time. I will be preoccupied with the story for the next 30 minutes or so because this will be a new video, right? It's another deep digression here. Kind of deep. We'll try not to make it sound too deep because we've heard this all before. I'm doing pretty well, Nicholas. How are you? So, let's start. So, once again, as I remind most people that using something like Duolingo, you encounter, yesterday I already talked about gatekeeping, right? Or unintentional gatekeeping, I suppose. So much like most of the time, since it's been 60 days, you're French? Well, hello there. I actually know another French person who is studying art in France, and they have a passion for Japanese, and they would like to visit Japanese once in a while. They're over at YouTube, but perhaps you guys can converse in French. Who knows? Are you interested in Japanese in any way, Nicholas? So, as going back on track, so gatekeeping, I talked about this briefly yesterday with another stranger I've met online. We've had lots of conversations lately, and gatekeeping can happen. Gatekeeping can happen every once in a while for many reasons, and oftentimes I talk about the two forms of gatekeeping. One that's out of passion. They're both out of passion, but one is out of passionate compassion, right? And then one is out of exclusivity. So like superiority, I would say. And a lot of times, really, it's on a spectrum. So wherever you are in here, you either sway between your insecurities of exclusivity because of how much you love something, right? Versus the compassion thing where you sell sob stories about, oh yeah, you know, I failed before, I don't want you to fail, so let's gatekeep, right? Or I do this because I have your best interests in mind. So it's around here. And let's make sure that we get this clear. 90% of the time, gatekeeping is a selfish act. For better or for worse. People who are selfish can be magnanimous as well. So it's usually referring to the inward focus thing. And believe it or not, very successful people gatekeep, right? Because they are passionate. It's inwardly, but it still has the feelings of the other person. It's not to say that one who is motivated selfishly cannot be able to help other people. And let's frame this. I've met a new critic. This is very classical. My interactions with people who see me use Duolingo for an extended time generally filters in 95%. I still stand by my 95% of people who make assumptions and are part of the echo chamber. Rarely have I ever encountered someone who doesn't, like 5% of the time, who doesn't attack me ad hominem argument indirectly by suggesting they attack the product in order to indirectly suggest I'm wasting my time. Right? That's 95% of the time. But for the 5% that I continue to do this, thank you very much. I really love those privileged people who stay around and understand that if you stay long enough, you'll know that the assumptions from the echo chambers do not apply to me in a various notable ways. However, in this case, this person falls into the 95%. So what was the remark? Well, the remark was Duolingo is terrible, right? Duolingo is terrible. And they try to make it about efficiency, so efficacy and efficiency, which is pretty normal. Efficacy. You're trying to learn Japanese. That's awesome, Nicholas. How are you trying to learn Japanese? Efficacy and efficiency. So we're falling into the pragmatism of this person who likes to speedrun language once again. And even more about this, I had a kind of a little exchange with the person, and this person now use moral grandstanding. So moral grandstanding is a really wonderful technique that allows one to gain influence. So what is moral grandstanding, if you're asking me? Moral grandstanding is when you see someone suffer and you use your own personal experience in order to gaslight someone to believing what you want to believe. So for example, I could be moral grandstanding sometimes, only I use my own personal experience and I make a suggestion. So for example, if someone approached me and asked me, why are you so happy? May I help? May I ask, why are you so happy? So first, the person asked me. Moral grandstanding tends to lack asking. So there's no asking. Moral grandstanding is this urge to be helpful. Very, very helpful because they witnessed something that didn't work or hurt someone that they know in their lives. Like for example, if you saw a friend use Duolingo for a year, which is the very specific example this person used, if you witness your friend use Duolingo for a year to learn Japanese and they still can't enjoy anime the way they want, play video games and etc., it hurts, right? It hurts. You want your friend to have the best, right? And that feeling of being superior in knowing that you know better, and it hurts you that you think you know better, that's moral grandstanding. So oftentimes when you go around and you you're fluent in Japanese, for example, right? As a second language acquisition, you're fluent in Japanese. You have this urge to provide unsolicited advice. Unsolicited advice. That is moral grandstanding. As in, you have a duty. And that is perfectly all right. It's selfish, right? Because you want to remove your guilt and urge that you know better so you can help this other person. That's fine. Now, the question is, when you moral grandstand, or does this individual who moral grandstand understand that when no one asks for it, as in no one is approaching this person, they have to understand that the person they're trying to help is either going to reject or accept, or maybe partially accept and partially reject their advice because they didn't ask for it. So the difference between moral grandstanding and being helpful is that the individual approaches you with an open mind. You could be unlucky when you moral grandstand and hit someone who has a closed mind. Fortunately, I'm not such a person. I'm more in the middle. I take whatever is useful to me, I accept it with grace, and I reject the various things. And I'm going to go over the things I accept and the things I reject, right? So this person said that their friend spent in a year. I'm going to answer your question in a way, Nicholas, because this person has a differing opinion than I do, and maybe it will answer your question in the long run. So this person claims that they learned French, ironically, coincidentally enough, they learned French using Duolingo starting back at 2019. And to whatever date now, apparently Duolingo became, I'm going to use this inference. I'm inferring this. it might not be accurate though, that Duolingo became hyper incorporated. Because based on the person's language, I'm expecting this person's anti-corporation. So anti-corporation. And I understand that. Honestly, the diction the guy was using was probably American. Oftentimes, when something becomes extraordinarily popular and it introduces microtransactions and the barrier features, it becomes very corporate. Because Duolingo actually went public during those years. They became an IPO, right? So they have public investors. And investors want money. So yeah, I get where this person's coming from. So I can sympathize with that. When a product you love becomes incorporated, you move on. So this person apparently moved on. I don't know what year they moved on. They just mentioned French 2019. And then they saw their friends still use Duolingo for Japanese for a year. And apparently their friend cannot watch anime the way they want and new video games. So that's their experience. I have no one I know that uses Duolingo. So I have no perspective on that. So they have my sympathies. I'm sorry that you see a friend spend so much time and effort and they refuse to listen to you as a good friend, and you somehow are unable to help them, since this guy was clearly fluent in Japanese, or so they imply. So what are their choices, Nicholas? What are their choices? Their choices are Anki, and then what is it? Toma something? Tomakin? This was suggested a bunch of times too. And then they say some sort of like native media. These are the words that they introduced. So jargon. Babin, can you clarify for me on this? It's like something about a novel or something. And then they talked about like one or two like Kukol or something. Kukol skits or something like that. In the end, what it says is there. Oh, no worries, Nicholas. Good luck with Japanese. I'm sorry that I couldn't get to the point in time, but yeah, good luck with your Japanese interest. It is kind of late in France, I suppose. Anyways, so Anki, and then this like I'm guessing this is some sort of like visual novel thing where it's a service where you get visual novels, and then native media is the actual phrase the person used. You're ready to get all Indy, stop stealing my thunder. You're not allowed to say that yet. It's my thunder. Okay, and then this thing. If anyone can clarify what these things are, let me know, because I keep forgetting the name. But this name came up. It's something like Tomakin or Tomaikin or something. It's like some sort of visual novel. I don't know what it like. Kukyo. I don't know. But hang on. Let me. I can find it. Give me a sec. Hold up. Give me a sec. I know how to find it because it's public. If you guys want to know, it's public. We had an exchange on one of my videos, so I thought it was very educational. It came up multiple times, so I might look into it to see what it is. I believe the thing is called, okay, so let's I should have done my research, but it was very late. It kept me up till like 6 a.m. This person said Anki, a pop-up dictionary like, oh, Yomitan. Yomitan is a pop-up dictionary. Yeah, I've seen this multiple times. And Cure Dolly. And a few Cure Dolly things. So, yeah, so let me rephrase this. So, what was that? No, Yomitan, right? Yomitan, and whatever Cure Dolly is. Pure Dolly is a grammar resource. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So Babin again says Yomitan is the goat. It's goated, and Pure Dolly is a grammar resource. Great. So, thanks, Nojo. Thanks again. So there's the loose suggestion, right? And their argument is that my time is better spent, right? Better spent doing that. Fair enough. That sounds about accurate, because someone else, the other peeps, I would say 60 to 7 other peeps. Okay. 99% of the peeps that I've encountered says Anki. Okay. This is about 50% of people mention Yamitan. And then native media is about 100% native media. That's fine. And then this is the first time of hearing Pure Dolly, right? Or Kude, I don't know if it's Pure Dolly or Kude Dolly, whichever. This is the first time. And I take the person at the word because we actually exchanged Japanese. I've been using Japanese to reply. So whatever Japanese I know, I've been trying to use it to reply in the YouTube comments. So I basically just said, "So desu ka? Omoshiroi," right? Daijoubu desu. The person was expressing that I was using. It's a VTuber for some reason. Okay, so thank you. Actually, that's a very helpful hint. In inference, behavioral inference. Thank you for sharing that it's a VTuber. That's a very important thing that backs up some of my converging evidence or analyses of this person's behavior. That's very important detail. So far, this person says, "I know better. All right? Duolingo is terrible. Save yourself the heartache and the hard work that you place. I don't want you to live with regrets, because I spent my life in French 2019 and I've been using it and it just wet the bed. Duolingo is so terrible now. I've seen my friends for 1 year try so hard and they can't even barely understand anime and manga and play video games." For the record, you'll hear my rebuttal soon enough. But anyways, there's no, and meanwhile, all I'm thinking about is, oh yeah, this person's quite nice. They seem to care about me, I think. So I took it for a grain of salt. I've heard all these things before, and those are excellent suggestions. They're incredibly excellent suggestions. So now let's analyze this some more, right? There was another stranger who replied, and as much as I appreciate their counter gatekeeping. So, you know, this gatekeeper that I'm referring to right now was countered by what I would refer to as white knight. So it was countered by a white knight. All right? It was countered by a white knight. And a white knight is not, okay, maybe not, we'll put it in quotations. So this is not particularly my knight. As in, it's more like two moral grandstanding people coming against each other. And they use very strong language. So this person haven't responded at all because I kind of resolved it, I suppose, resolved the communication. But this person says, "No one cares. No one cares." In my defense, if I am consistent, I'll learn lots of vocabulary, right? Actually, the person said specifically 10x vocabulary. Am I gonna sound unnatural? Sure. However, whenever I decide to transition into native speak, right, or something like that, I'll have 10x the vocabulary. So I really appreciate this person as well as this gatekeeper, but they both, in a way, suffer from moral grandstanding. So as in, they have the noblest of intention, but at the same time, they are willingly and engaging in sort of tangentially helping me in different ways. So the reason why I say moral grandstanding is because languages, when you use English and you use words like terrible, terrible, only, no one, everyone, proof, because it's 100% accurate, all these things are moral grandstanding. These are emotionally charged statements. There are rarely anything in this universe, especially concerning the human condition, that has only, no one, everyone, and proof that everyone, like 100% of people, behave in a specific way. Perhaps if I were being very jaded, nonchalantly, perhaps one day Duolingo would teach Poisson distribution or normal distribution, because regardless, there are very few things in this universe that deals with humanity that doesn't have spuriousness that would largely destroy these only and no one. So in a way, the oxymoron and the counterintuitive nature here is the white knight particularly is on my side, sort of. When they say no one cares, the irony here, the paradox here, is they are talking to someone that does care. So to be fair, right, to both sides, that gatekeeper is someone that cares. So effectively, it's a paradox. It's a paradoxical phrase. So what are these two people? They are both gatekeepers. See how that gatekeeper thing works from yesterday? When you gatekeep, you are excluding everyone outside yourself. So whatever you say, you exclude yourself and your community away from the people you are criticizing. And sure enough, I relate to both of these people. If someone asks me, or I look around and I watch a YouTube video concerning learning methods and how to be healthy mentally and how to create motivation and all of that stuff, my thought is I have an urge to gatekeep, as in I have morals in which, man, that's misinformation. But ultimately, for me, as a person that I usually consider myself pretty professional about these things, unless someone solicits my advice, I often am disciplined enough to resist the urge of moral grandstanding and interlude in someone's business when they clearly have a healthy relationship with whatever they're doing right now, right? It is only during the time of incredible dire straits when I see someone who is in the process of premeditated self-harm that I have interfered or intervened in any way. And that has happened 2 or 3 times in my life. And I was very ill prepared the first time. I still felt pretty ill prepared the second time. The third time, it got a little better. So I'm no stranger to a sob story, right? So I'm no stranger to a sob story, but I don't use my sob story to sell gaslight peddling methods, right? You believe what you believe in. Make them sound like suggestions, not some indicative mood, actual facts. The actual facts are you are incorrect about me, right? You are incorrect about me. Hey, Paul. Speaking of the other French person. What's up, Paul? So let's get to facts now. Brass tacks, right? Your dolly is... Oh, sorry. I read that already. So... brass tacks. So what can I say about this? Oh, this person, by the way, the gatekeeper, retorted to the white knight and said that Duolingo doesn't teach you all that many vocab anyways, right? It doesn't do any vocab at all. It basically drip feeds you. The language is very echo chamber. So drip feeds you like 1 or 2 words, at most like 10 words. And then they would compare to Anki and say like, well, if you Anki, even for 1 hour, you could get like more than 10 words. And just so you know, this is another indicator that person obviously do not know what's in the video, as in they're commenting based on their prejudices. They don't actually understand how much they objectively don't know how many words I learn each day. They don't objectively know what I do. So inherently I had to respond, because there's a lot of misinformation or presumptions. There are enough evidence from this person's comments, indirectly and directly, that I know nearly 99.9% if this person is a professional and they care about my well-being or care about whatever well-being, they will appropriately respond to my accusation that they have no idea what I've done so far and they didn't even look at the video. Okay? So that after a while, the person talked enough. I'm like, okay, I gathered enough information. So nearly 99% sure this person doesn't even look at the video. They saw that it was Duolingo. They saw that it was day 57. And then I spent at least 57 days. They don't even know how much time I spent. It actually might benefit their evidence, because I actually spent an average of 6 to 8 hours. That's far more than the average person. So it could have worked in their advantage. They could have collected objective observations and presented a case that actually could convince me to stop using Duolingo. But instead, this person has a vendetta against Duolingo. It's a projection of emotional compromise, and I called them out for it. So what was my response? My response was, this person said a lot of things like to the other white knights, like how you can be so sure if you don't use other methods and consider other methods and use other methods, etc. So my rebuttal is, how can you be so sure? How can you be so sure? Because I needed to indicate that I actually read this person's message. So how can you be so sure that I use only Duolingo, or that I don't know about these alternative methods, right? Don't know about these alternative methods, and also don't use them or use other methods. How can you be so sure? So sure enough, this person was fine with that, because it's true. He doesn't know. So that's great. Check 1. Next one is, I call him out and say, you have frustrations against Duolingo. And I respect that, because they feel betrayed by Duolingo. It used to be useful and now it's not. That's fair. However, your advice is targeted at people who want to learn. And because you hate Duolingo, you choose to hate or use malicious like FOMO and whatnot, like FUD, to discourage other people in response. And I actually I verbalized this differently. I used negative. The person used negative, deconstructive advice. As in, you instill fear and doubt in order to get your way. So instead of being encouraging, like moral grandstanding, if you care about the welfare of the person, you would be encouraging. You encourage things like saying, oh, hey, Duolingo does this. If you use this, it also does this, only there are other flexibilities. Instead, what they did was, you waste your time, you're going to regret it, so therefore use this. that is negative, deconstructive advice. That is not in the interest of the other person. That is a clear indication that this person is offering this advice for their own purpose. And what is their purpose? They have beef with Duolingo. And just so you know, in my opinion, 80% of the time, it's not what I'm doing that matters. It's not me as a person. It's the person's beef with Duolingo. And what happens? Who is the wreckage? Who's the collateral? The person using Duolingo. Not their advice or professional help or whatever they want. It's a projection of their frustrations. So that's perfectly fine. I call them out on it and they're like, okay, that's fine. They'll continue to pursue that. So they basically said, oh yeah, you're right. I shouldn't jump to conclusions, right? I did jump to conclusions and it was fine, but whatever it is, even if you ignore all my Japanese things, Duolingo is the successors, and I'm going to continue going around on my crusade on informing anyone who uses Duolingo to not use Duolingo, because they truly believe in their nobility and their superiority as a gatekeeper, that it's toxic, it hurts people, and that's all it can do. It can only create negativity. It can only be just, not useful. It doesn't bring people together. It doesn't encourage people. It has no redeeming quality whatsoever. And they're only actually they cited one redeeming quality. It can only help you, and this is the actual word they presented. I actually think this person has a deficiency in English as well, but revise, it can only help you revise material. That's in my opinion, that's not the word that they intended. In fact, if Duolingo can help revise material, it would be a reference material. So I think that would be weakening their argument if it helps revise material. They mean to revisit or review material. Okay? So anyways, that's not why I shared this story actually. I've had Indy already stole my thunder because this person actually introduced me to a new echo chamber language. So, yes, echo chamber. I must embrace these things because I am, like last time I said, I am going to be against the gate. I have many gatekeepers to attend with, and I can choose which gate I really want to knock on. Okay, so I'm already, over these years, I guess this is kind of a 2-month summary of my personal mental and stance on this. I am no longer, as a Duolingo user, I have already been gatekept. So here are the gatekeepers that I am not going to invest my time in going into, right? Because these are the gates of learning Japanese and using Duolingo as one of the tools. Just to reveal, in my opinion, it's great to be transparent with myself and my expectations while also revealing to the greater audience what it feels like in this day and age to try to be a Japanese language learner, okay? Especially one that shows Duolingo content. So what is it? Well, I am already gatekept from being a native-like Japanese speaker, right? And this is very specific. So Japanese speaker. Now, when it comes to literacy, I can no longer, some people have already gatekept me away from literacy as well. But this is a minority. It's like 20%. And then this is nearly 99%, right? So I'm fine with that. I'm not, sorry guys, like, I'm not paying for this entry into this gate. You win. You win, guys. The gatekeepers of the people who says native like Japanese speaker, as in the secondary education, secondary acquisition. And then by indirect exposure, I can no longer enter native speak. So I can never be accepted, right? This is obvious. You can never be native if you were never native in the first place. So I've already accepted this. This did not require any stimuli, because anytime a native speaker evaluate something like Duolingo indirectly or talk about secondary language acquisition, right? Secondary language acquisition, you can't enter this gate. I've already accepted that. So goodbye, native speakers. I don't want to relate to you as a native speaker. Actually, with all due respect, I prefer not to be seen as a native speaker. If I sound like a native speaker, I'm going to humbly correct that person and say, I'm not a native speaker. I am also not Japanese. All right? Okay? And then when someone tells me, oh yeah, your Japanese is so good, it's almost native-like, I humbly respect that you do not categorize me as a secondary language acquisition native-like speaker, because 99% of those people rejects me as a native-like speaker if it ever happens. Okay? So we're being very realistic of all the communities that I'm gate-kept away, and I'm not going to invest effort into specifically addressing those. I have no aspirations of breaking into that community. We talked about this yesterday's, especially Sub-Zero, very familiar with this. So it happened yesterday. Now, where do I go from here? Well, there's a third target, and it's thanks to this gatekeeper that now I have a new jargon from the gatekeeping ecosystem, the echo chamber of jargon categorization. And guess what? I'm gonna try to become Duolingo Fluent. Let's see if the Duolingo Fluent community rejects me. And we talked about this yesterday, Sub-Zero. This would be considered a closeted casual community. And the thing about closeted casual community is the gates are always wide open. Generally speaking, they tend to be wide open unless it's a competitive scene, right? Unless it's a competitive scene, then it would make this a non-casual. It'd become a hardcore competitive scene. But usually, like leaderboards and stuff, that's extra incentive. It's not really all that large. It represents a very small percentage. So for the future, this is gonna be the title of this video, by the way. I think I spent around 40 minutes. My new goal that I'm going to say to reinforce the animosity towards Duolingo and then scorching earth everyone around it is this crusade that I am not a fan of personally, where it doesn't matter who you scorch as long as you are right. So for all of those people who are Anki users, which filters into this community, Anki is a rite of passage. Even this Yomitan is a rite of passage. Like if you punch a card, it's like, oh, have you used Anki yet? Okay, you've used it for a couple months. Let's punch that card and get into. We can. The gate is kind of open. It's like, oh, Yomitan. Okay, punch another card. Like this checklist, this 10 checklist. It's like, oh, have you listened to anime without the subtitles? Punch that card, right? So I'm not going near that. That's not happening. I'm even to the point now I'm disinterested because it's the same pedal stuff. It's constantly peddling the same thing. And what the irony here is, this is the group that constantly assumes I don't already do most of these things. They didn't look at the videos. They didn't even know me. They basically presumptuously, ironically, like native speakers, like native Japanese speakers, monoculturally presume prejudicial things. Like, oh yeah, this person speaks American English. Obviously, they didn't do the following things. And then, oh yeah, this person uses Duolingo to learn Japanese. Obviously, they didn't do these things. And then, sure enough, though, the silver lining here is when I collected enough evidence and I responded as politely as I can with some level of intellectual investment, like be a little bit formal in what I'm saying, the individuals, like, they do apologize for assuming I don't know this stuff. However, it's a light assume and a light apology, because ultimately in the end they say, I'm still right. So good luck with whatever you want to do. I'm still right. Goodbye. Sorry I make assumptions. I'm still right. Goodbye. That's the paraphrasing. All the pedantic platitudes. I'm not 17. Like, especially when they kept throwing around jargon, echo chamber jargon, like fluency, efficacy, suboptimal. Like, yeah, I understand. Guess what? Well, I will respond and retort in incredibly high level English as well, to politely say, thank you for your advice. However, it's predicated on two axiomatic prejudicial things. First, you hate Duolingo. I don't represent Duolingo. Second, I'm not that ignorant. All right? I'm sorry about your friend, Mr. Mysterious Gatekeeper. Your friend seems to strike me as someone that needs a new working method, and it sounds like you, as their friend, could moral grandstand and help them. Right? If you can't convince your friend to listen to you on how to efficaciously learn Japanese or dedicate time, how can I ever think that your advice can help a stranger who, as humbly as I can say, is far more educated than you think he is? So not only did you disrespect me, give me no indication that you know anything that I've done in the last 60 days, you also condescend, talk to me like I'm a child, and then you use a sentimental sob story about your friend who you're not helping and fail to help, and you think you can do that for a stranger. Professionally, mentally, and non-professionally, that is very, very bold, arrogant, prideful, kind to some extent, but that is gatekeeping 101. So there you go. And now I have acquired a new goal, I suppose. When someone tells me, what's my goal for learning Japanese? I want to become Duolingo fluent in Japanese. And you know why that's such an elegant way of capitalizing on something? Because generally when someone asks me, why am I learning Japanese and what do I think about Duolingo, they're looking for the echo chamber response. They're fishing for a trap. They're not interested in my progress. They're not interested in who's right or wrong from my perspective. They are only interested in setting me up for their crusade and missionary frustration in trying to figure out how they can better steer me away from Duolingo. And I told the person in the response, as humbly as I can, usually my approach to learning is all of the above. It's all of the above. I do a little of everything. That's the whole idea. That includes Duolingo. the moment you step into my channel or step into my comment section, I really hope that the person first demonstrates that they actually watch any of it, because I usually make my statements at the beginning of videos most of the time, or I actually have review videos of my comments. That establishes rapport. Then they suggest something that isn't unilaterally prejudicial, hyperbolic, oversold, or largely emotionally charged. So check all of these things, because welcome to the MAKU PhD gate, and the MAKU PhD gate of population 1. So my house, my place, has an entry 2. I understand a population of 1 is not as strong as your 100,000 experts who agree with you, or those imaginary numbers you keep throwing out about like how Duolingo doesn't do this, Duolingo doesn't do that, and then somehow you found magic tools that do everything Duolingo doesn't do. But guess what? They also don't do a lot of things. There are inherent trade-offs in the way learning works. And my response most of the time, I don't know how to say this in Japanese yet. I'm going to learn how to say this in Japanese. Why not all of the above? Right? There are things Duolingo do and don't. You only shared what it doesn't, and then you only shared all your examples what they do. That is not how objectivity works. That is not how advice works. When you offer advice, you offer transparency as comprehensively as possible. So before you put on your moral grandstanding blinders to what you want to see, confirm what you also haven't seen in a long time. For example, when did your friend start Japanese? It could be a friend that started in 2020, which is irrelevant now, because the biggest update to Japanese course is 2023, at the end of 2023. In fact, I kind of started coincidentally right after the update. So no objectivity, again, super blinders. And they actually, when I said like omoshiroi, daijoubu desu, right? They typed this like half paragraph in Japanese. And little did I know I could read most of it. But guess what? I also plugged it into Google Translate because it looked very Duolingo-like. Like what I mean is, it kind of strikes me as someone who typed English into Google Translate and then copy-pasted onto the comment section. Perhaps this person's fluent in like native like in Japanese. I don't know, but I have yet to see someone who typed Japanese and Google Translate was like, oh yeah, I nailed it. I nailed the thing. But man, it was remarkably wonderfully translated by Google Translate. I don't really know how far Google Translate has come, but that raises some red flags. Nevertheless, it was some great Japanese and I complimented the person in Japanese. So there you have it. What's the title of this video and this rant? Duolingo Fluency. Or Duolingo Literate, because NDRA stole my thunder and said Duolingo Literate way back. So my goal now is to become Duolingo Literate and Duolingo Fluent. So whenever someone asks me, oh, what am I doing on Duolingo? I'm trying to become Duolingo Fluent here. Is there a counter argument to that? I have no idea. We'll find out. Because if I'm not striving to be native like as a secondary language acquisition, and sure enough, native speakers don't really care about me most of the time because I'm not born in Japan and like live and breathe in Japan, then let's go for Duolingo Fluency. I think that's a great echo chamber thing that does not have a lot of counter arguments. So when someone tells me, what am I doing with Duolingo? It's a waste of time. It's like, well, you can't be Duolingo fluent if you don't use Duolingo. Let's use the same logic that every gatekeeper uses. The very majority of gatekeepers use is they reject whatever they don't see and they claim what they do see. So if I say I want to be Duolingo fluent, Yeah, I'm learning Duolingo. Fair enough, right? So it's funny because in no way have I ever suggested that my primary goal was to learn Japanese or become any of these things. I can't really express this enough. In my very first video ever, I talked about how I was evaluating Duolingo. And by coincidence, like most people say, by coincidence, I'm learning Japanese. Like some Japanese, by coincidence. So, I'm still a gamer at heart. Anyways, let me catch up on chat because I needed to finish that segment. I didn't want to break too much. Sorry for not being here too often currently. I have a lot of things to handle during my evenings, so I try to focus on it. But don't worry, I'm still seeing your streams on my YouTube. Aw, thanks, Paul. I'm still doing your Duolingo lessons. Apps, awesome. Keep it up. Looks like Paul is on 22 streak, and I also learned English because I'm French and you are using it too. Very nice. Very nice. I mean, like, and then Paul was asking Millie, but Paul was answering Millie on what language he's using, which is Japanese, and he's French, and he also does English. Millie doesn't use Duolingo. We already know that because their opinions are different, and then Millie uses a lot of others. And I think, Millie, don't you have a teacher? I'm not sure, Millie. Are you the one that is in Bangladesh and you have a teacher as well, right? Or was that someone else? Anyways, yeah, I see. I'm also learning with, yeah. So Paul also uses like French, Japanese books, right? I use other things as well. However, I show Duolingo stuff because in a way it's my way of encountering rebuttals and other people conversation. It's to increase engagement because I like being in a situation where I'm challenged to think, not to blindly follow prescribed things, right? So I'm a little bit of a upstream swimmer, if you know what I mean. Salmon swimming upstream. Let's see, guys. I think Duolingo Bird has gotten to him. Fly. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Pure Dolly is not really okay. There should be Subway Surfer gameplay in the side. That's a different deep cut, Babin. So I will not digress into that today. I need to make time for my lessons. Hey MAKU, oh yeah, VIP. I have to mark clearly the people that I talk to a lot because after a while, if I encounter more people, I like to quickly be able to know who I'm talking to. So after individuals who know enough about my personality and have been around to see my idiosyncrasies, like my behaviors, my counter arguments, oftentimes I like to mark them so that I know what type of tone and what type of discussions I can have with those people. So like Indie, Sub-Zero, Lotus, those individuals like you guys are more conditioned and normalized to the way I speak and the way I talk. So I change up the way I speak and the way I talk around individuals who are very familiar with how I sound. So I do not talk the same way. I do not talk the same way regarding strangers. So oftentimes I have to make sure. So this is a rant about the lessons you're doing. Kind of about the lesson. And who's gatekeeping? Just a random stranger. If you want to know where it is and you want to read the actual words, if anyone's interested in knowing what the actual words are that were exchanged between us, because I do paraphrase, the person did not delete their comments. So they're very proud and stand by what they say. And I respect that. They hold their ground, they have resolve, and that's pretty great. I didn't make any attempt to gaslight them or anything. I just wanted to correct their false assumptions. So if you want to know which it is, if you want to see the comment string, feel free. It is the day 56. It's the Duolingo live recording one. So day 56, Duolingo Japanese. It's marked by the number 168. If you want to know what the comments look like. Yeah, you got a teacher. Yeah, Millie is the one with the Japanese teacher from Bangladesh. Or I mean the Bangladesh Japanese teacher. So, Japanese language teacher. The Japanese is going pretty well, Josie. Thanks. On YouTube. So if you want to see the actual comments, feel free. How's the jam? Okay, I guess this isn't the first time this happened today or recently. No. This has happened over 30 to 40 times already. I'm getting close to having one for each day, but usually it comes in waves. So this one comes in waves. And I like to talk about them because I want to be fair to things. And I love comments. Comments are fantastic. I love to start each stream with some sort of story because it keeps me fresh. It keeps me invested. I'm incredibly invested. And I'm reinvigorated. Like, I work much, much harder when I know there are other things to consider and other opponents and whatnot. In fact, knowing that I can use the phrase Duolingo Fluent, thanks to this person, I'm absolutely inspired to use this phrase from now on. It's so precise. And maybe in the future, someone will say, oh, you can't use the word fluent because you're not fluent in anything. So then maybe I'll change it to like a Duolingo gamer or something. I don't know. Well, we'll see what the future holds. But I do like I personally know there's a lot of people who think of it as a derogatory second-class citizen, but let's be real. If I'm going to use my life as anything, I've already been told that I'm not Chinese. I've already been told that I'm not American. So it's rarely abnormal or normalized at all to call me a non-native. I will never be non-native. Like, that's a run-of-the-mill thing. Like, I want to give you and other people the perspective that if you're listening to me now, categorizing people, if I have a predilection for categorization because that's part of my life. Now, you and your monocultural crusade, always being surrounded by people who agree with you or always looking down on people who don't agree with you, that is not my cup of tea. I always have to check my pride and arrogance at the door because, generally speaking, to live my life, it involves constantly being told what I'm not because I inherently do not fit in any of these gated communities. So naturally, I tend to embrace it as opposed to constantly using my life and energy to fight against it. I don't want to fight against native speakers. I don't want to fight against native like Japanese people. So do me a favor and stop categorizing me in something that I strive not to be. And that's fair enough, right? It's a mutual respectful line of resistance. I do not peddle how to teach people Japanese. I do not peddle what I'm doing is right or wrong. So what type of pride and arrogance do I have that I need to defend? I don't. I'm not suggesting things I don't do. However, that doesn't keep gatekeepers from thinking they know what's best, right? Let's see. Learning Duolingo, not the language. It is what it is. Duolingo fluency. It's interesting to hear these takes because I've been talking with Japanese when they drop by your stream. The things I mess up are particles, which I recently found out I don't understand. Oh, interesting. I had a question before, and I definitely do agree with you about the whole particles thing. Yesterday I was talking to Lotus chimed in too. The fossilized no expressions for attributive nouns, right? The fossilized no particles where you omit them. Yeah, I couldn't find a clear answer about that, other than either you know or you include the no for attributive nouns. That's how I think. Oh, hey, Nicholas was here. Yeah. Now you're getting the Duolingo PhD. Yeah, I'm working on my Duolingo PhD, my friends. Much like I love Slay the Spire. So just as a shout out to one of my favorite deck builders, right? To this day, because I still play it to some extent, or expose myself to it. Much like Slay the Spire. Slay the Spire PhD, man. Not it's different from having a I don't know, across the obelisk PhD. That's not it. Like I don't have a maybe I'll try to get that too. So it's like a game, right? Yesterday Sub-Zero prompted this gatekeeping thing, dealing off of the Souls-like game. I don't have a Souls-like PhD, so sorry. No Souls-like PhD. But categorization is often every time I hear categorization, when I hear categorization, you're gatekeeping. That's how that works, in my opinion. I have a PhD in Japanese, though. Yes, true. So if you start saying us, them, you, not me, that's how that works, right? I've been told these things, and I understand. I really do understand. I cannot be Chinese if I don't live in China, or understand that I haven't been to China and lived around Chinese people. So I can't be Chinese. That's kind of what gatekeeping feels like. And I respect that. When you care so much about your gated community, so much, right? It's hard to fulfill those requirements. I need a few people in my life, and when I have them, I try my best to cherish them and feel privileged. So whenever there's a stranger nearby, like one person or two people who lend me an ear and spend their time, they're the best. Because everyone else shuns you, and that's fine. I actually am well built. I was raised and conditioned to be well built on maximizing the few. The high quality few, not the masses. So it's ironic that gatekeepers would say, this is how you learn Japanese, and this is how you feel natural all the time, when they're part of the bigger community. They are legitimately Duolingo all over again. If they balloon to 100 million people, or 10 million daily people, then they in fact are Duolingo too. They prescribe exactly what you need to do to become part of them. Duolingo prescribes exactly what they need to do to be part of them. So, hey, if Duolingo fluent people, if Duolingo literate people welcome me with open arms and low resistance, then heck yeah, I'll go and chill with Duolingo. And guess what Duolingo does? What did I do last evening? I watched 6 animated shorts featuring the 8 characters in Duolingo. And you know what the gated communities outside of Duolingo say? It's like, oh yeah, Duolingo doesn't focus on learning language. It's focused on memes and building communities and building like emotional support and keeping you on the app so that it's filled with personality and you wanting to be there. Like, oh yeah, that actually sounds kind of nice. So what do I know now? I know Spanish or Vanish, and actually Sub-Zero, I want to call you out on something. I'm not sure if this is intentional. You might be subtextually trying to tell me something here. When you said womp womp, were you referring to a Duolingo short? because yesterday when I was watching a Duolingo animated short, one of the characters said womp womp, and it was hilarious. Like, and it's not hilarious because the animated short was hilarious. It was because you said womp womp to me. Zadi and Lily, the two characters, like Lily is the moody one and Zadi is like the high perky one, and they were making like a short about what you call it, diminutives. So diminutives is a way to make something endearing. So they were using Spanish diminutives, right, in the short. So things like if I called you subby, or if I call indie. So when I say indie, I would write, like, for example, I know by chance you can pronounce as indie, but I'm actually imagining it this way. So it's like a diminutive, like mom and mommy, right? So at the end, like Lily, Lily is like is it Zadi? Yeah, Zadi is her name. The perky one. Lily was like womp womp somewhere, and I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. I laughed so hard, but I'm like, wait a minute. Was Sub-Zero trying to educate me? Anyways. You have amazing argument, full smart. Thanks, Millie. Yes, I'm gonna be working on my Duolingo PhD. You know what makes gatekeepers really upset? When they look across their gate, and they see other people being happy, and possibly even exceeding them. That, dear Lord, I'm not gonna try to do that. There's no way I'm gonna try to make it look like I'm learning Japanese more than the people behind the gates, because oftentimes that introduces animosity. So I'm not going to tell you that I learned a lot of Japanese. I'm not going to reinforce that. It creates unhealthy, malicious targeting. Did I ever tell you that I hope I'm not giving anyone the impression that, oh yeah, I'm becoming more fluent now? Like, I haven't said that phrase ever. In fact, I only said the opposite. Every time I talked about English, I have established that I'm concerned that my English is becoming too colloquial, as in my English is underdeveloped. The thing that I've said most of the time is I need to learn English again, right? Learning Japanese make me think that I have a lot of gaps in my knowledge in English. In fact, I learned more English in arguably the last 60 days because of learning Japanese than I have in a long time. I always thought my English was pretty proficient. However, not at a level that I would say is reflective of how long I've been using English. So. Oh, you said it's because some kids on the internet said it to me when I complained about something once. Oh, okay. Sky Lily is very funny. I love her. Yeah. So here's the thing. I am willing to never be native-like, regardless of what I learn on Duolingo. I know that one thing that Duolingo's people, the people at Duolingo, likes to do is to create media and create togetherness and community. It's the reason why I played Overwatch for 4 years. Really, it's not the gate-kept community. Like, for example, Overwatch. Let's just say I'm not competitive enough to get into the gated community of Overwatch. However, I love the developers. Even though they worked really hard, they're consistently crunched and undervalued because of Activision Blizzard's executive function and all that stuff, which the reason why I'm mentioning that is because Duolingo has investors, right? It's a publicly traded company, so there's a lot of crunch onto the developers. However, what the developers give to the closeted casual community, much like Overwatch and Hearthstone and whatnot, is magic, in my opinion. And what that stranger, actually 95% of those strangers coming into the comments saying, oh yeah, I care about your progress. I want you to be native-like and, you know, be fit in with the Japanese people or get as close to be accepted by the Japanese people. I care about you. And then they spill over this malicious vendetta against Duolingo, and it's the opposite of what Duolingo does. I actually think the developers are incredibly kind-hearted and care about the togetherness than the eccentricity and the mastery of the stuff that they're teaching. Like, they're not like, that's not a community. I don't like being part of communities who like talk down to anyone who disagrees with them and talks down easily and brush aside anything that is not in their community. So yeah, for you Souls fans out there, I'm probably sure this might be a fun thing. If you don't understand it, it's perfectly fine. If I play Elden Ring, heck yeah, I'm gonna slam that magic. Magic's gonna fly all over and it's gonna be OP as heck. So if that doesn't trigger some Souls gated community, then not a lot will. So much like this, I might as well be Duolingo Fluent. It's something else. At least no one will disagree with that, I hope. I hope I don't become a target of something. I would be shocked if someone comes up to me and say, oh yeah, you can't be Duolingo Fluent unless you use Anki. That would be a weird counter argument, but alright. Why do I say this? Because oftentimes I'm at the receiving end of categorization. Often people have called me so many things that makes me a second-class citizen. So, you're not Chinese, you're American from a Chinese person. You're not American, you're Chinese from an American. You're not Japanese because you're learning Japanese. Like, that's fine. I'm okay with that. Save your profiles and advice for someone who actually fulfills your checklist. I'm not interested in, I'm definitely no longer am I interested in those things because I actually feel like I'm unwelcomed. But that's perfectly fine. It doesn't prevent me from enjoying your cultures, observing your communities from outside the gate. I will forever be a foreigner, but at least I get to enjoy the best things you have to offer to my community. Population, me. And I offer some visas here and there. There are, you know, over my lifetime, there's 15 to 20 people who I have offered visas to. And it's very subtly offered, as in, you will become very well aware in the future. If you think you're one of them, you will know immediately when my tone switches. So if you listen to my language well enough, and one day you'll be like, every time you say something, I say something really different, then you'll know that you have already passed the gate implicitly. So whenever you make like one comment and there's a specific pattern of speech and a specific pattern of investment, it's pretty clear. It's night and day. The way I approach stranger conversation and the way I approach people who are, I suppose, people I trust, or feel privileged to be with, it'll become very obvious. Anyways, I don't watch iShowSpeed. Yes, I tried, and I also tried with the other person. It's not my scene. Yes, I'm gonna say it very respectfully. Yes, I attempted to look up the things you share about. It's not my scene. I don't resonate with that. So I'll politely decline whatever you want to share regarding those people. If you are enjoying it, that's fantastic. I'm glad that that person brought a cat IRL. There are quite a lot of people around me who own cats. and I don't think this particular cat is exceptional. However, if you think it's exceptional, by all means, talk about how cute the cat is. I think cats are very cute, yes. Okay, so, all right, folks. I'm gonna take a bathroom break so then I can like cut this out, right? A little later. I'll be right back.